Now, Cain's offspring, because this is very, very important. Remember, many people think it was a dual pregnancy, one of an evil seed, one of a good seed, that they were of the same age, etc., etc. Well, we're going into that today. And we're going to put the picture totally together. And as we start in Genesis 4, verse 16 to 20, and by the way, the word Genesis is not in the Strongs. You will not find it. Genesis is the beginning of life. And the reason that Genesis is used in what you call the first book of the books is because it is in reference to the Genesis life of the seed of Yahweh through Adam, as per Luke 3:38. Now, we can go from Genesis 2:6 back to Genesis 1:1, and that will be different forms of life and lifetime cycles of other civilizations. But that isn't our goal or subject today. Now, in verse 16, Genesis chapter 4, and Cain went out from the presence of Yahweh, and he dwelt in the land of Nod, on the east of Eden. Now that's very interesting, because that is giving us a geographical description here and an idea of where this is taking place. And for those of you who have seen my other lectures relating to the Garden of Eden and the four rivers in the Upper Pamar Plateau of Sinking province of what you would call Western China today. At that time, that land was not known as China, because land titles and boundaries change as time goes on, the same as mountain ranges are created and drop and fall. Now, verse 17, and Cain knew his wife. Okay, so he was aware of who she was. This is very important. And she conceived to Cain, and bare Enoch, or Enoch in Aramaic, and he builded a city, and called the name of the city after the name of his son, of which we pronounce Enoch in English, Cainach in Aramaic. Now note, the book of Adam and Eve of the Ethiopic, also called the conflict of Adam and Eve with Satan, in these chapters thus, paragraph 5 states, and Yahweh looked at his maidservant Eve, and delivered her, and she brought forth her firstborn son, and with him a daughter. There were twins. Then Adam rejoiced at Eve's deliverance, and also over the children she had borne him. And Adam ministered unto Eve in the cave until the end of 8 days. Now this is interesting, because see, Adam and Eve were in a cave where all this happened. Father Yahweh said he would come in 5.5 days, 5,500 years, because as a day is to Yahweh, it's 1,000 years upon the earth for us, that he would come to redeem Adam and our spiritual brethren, and he was brought forth in a cave, not a manger, as they tell you, as a goy with the creatures and animals. Sure. Now, and Adam ministered unto Eve in the cave until the end of 8 days. And when they named the son Cain, and Cain means what? Hater. Oh, now we're going to find out who the real haters are in the earth, aren't we? Because you see, Jewry of today says anyone who speaks against the evil that they are doing are the haters. Now we're going to find out who the descendants of the haters are. All right? Now, and the daughter that was born at the same time with Cain was Lulua, meaning beautiful, because she was more beautiful than even her mother Eve. But they were twins. This is very important to remember. Now note, in the Ethiopic, Cain is pronounced Kale, and Luluella in the Aramaic means a pearl. See, these things are for you to know, because you see, this makes it easier to understand, and easier to understand means that it's easier for you to translate and to speak to people about these things. Whether they want to believe it or not, because when they look at you, they're going to say, where did you learn these things? My minister in the Lutheran Church doesn't teach me this. The Church of God doesn't teach you this. The Baptist Church doesn't teach this. In fact, all of organized religion doesn't teach this. Because they don't know it. They aren't supposed to know it because they're not to speak the truth, because then true Jacob Israel, the white European men, women, and children, and the nations thereof would be awakened to who they really were. Now, in verse 18, and unto Enoch was born Irad, and Irad begot Mahuziel, and Mahuziel begot Methusiel, and Methusiel begot Lamech. Alright? Now this is important because we just said there was an Enoch born back here. Now why is that important? Because you see in these 66 books there's two Enochs that are mentioned. The Enoch of Cain's seed and the Enoch of Seth's seed. The Enoch of darkness and the Enoch of light, the light seed, through Seth, who was Adam's son. See? And Ezra the prophet said that the seed of Seth, as recorded in the family tree of Luke 3:38, was the holy seed. That's right. The seed of Cain was never called the holy seed. It was called the cursed seed. The children of perdition. And the children of perdition is Jewry of the world today, of Esau-Edom, and they atone to it in their syndicates of Gog, and they know through the Jewish Encyclopedia of 1925, volume 4, page 25, states that Esau-Edom is modern Jewry, the seed of the serpent. They know these things. But it's just that our people don't know who we are because of organized religion. And for the falsity of teaching, because you see today in the white European nations, the poison is at the pulpits. Now, bear with me. In verse 19, because see, we're in Cain's seed line. Remember how we started? Cain's seed line? In verse 19, and Lamech took unto him two wives. The name of one was Ada, and the name of the other was Zillah. And Ada bore Jabal, and he was the father of such as dwell in the tents, and of such as have cattle. Now, what's going to be interesting here, as we continue to go into the seed line, you'll find that the seed line of Cain, none of them was a farmer to till the ground. And there's a reason for that, isn't there? Because Yahweh cursed Cain that the earth would not produce forth its fruit. Is this correct? So you see, more substance comes into being now. More understanding. More of these little pieces of the puzzle start coming together and not together, doesn't it? Now, so we know that they have cattle. They can raise cattle. Verse 21. And his brother's name, Jabal's brother, was Jubal. Jubal, not Jabal, Jubal. he was the father of such as handled the harp and the organ. Musicians. Look in the world today and see how many Jew musicians there are. And the rock and roll and the hip hop and the bebop. And who owns all the recording companies of the world today, all right? Who brought rock and roll and dirty dancing and all the filth to the people, all right? Now, we know they can raise cattle. We know they can play the harp and the organ, okay? Let's read up. Verse 22. And Zillah, she bore Tubal-Cain, an instructor of every artificial of brass and iron, or cheap jewelry stores, okay, and cheap trinkets, as you see in the malls that hang there, these cheap necklaces and made of plastic and cheap tin and everything else for 99 cents on a special or whatever, all right? So you see, an instructor, he was out teaching people how to make artificial things of brass and iron. Do you notice he wasn't out teaching them how to make things of gold and silver? And the sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah. Now note, the paleo teachers, or people who are historical teachers, hold that the serpent had intercourse with Eve. That's very important now. Whence Cain and Luwallah was born, and with him a sundry female infirmity, and that Samael, Satan, not being able, or not having strength or power, to seduce Adam, turned to Eve as to the weaker of the two. This is even in the Jewish books of understanding that they know, in the Zohar, in Enoch, Rabbini, FOL, section 16, they know that there was intercourse performed between the serpent and Eve. Now I know you have gone out there and explained things to people that it wasn't Eve eating an apple, but it was a pear on the ground, okay? Satan and Eve, right? And that they are called, okay? And they laid together, and they brought forth an evil seed. His name was Cain. But it's very hard. You see, it's very hard when you learn these things. See, many of these things, as you get them and gather this information, the pieces come to you and say, oh, wow, is this something? I've never heard this before. But the reason you haven't heard it before is because there were deliberate plans to conceal it from you, to make sure you didn't have the opportunity to hear it, and keep you immersed in Judeo-Christianity, where the Jew was the master instead of the villain. Okay? Now, next please. And Abel and his twin sister, Achlamia. Now this is taken on a whole different perspective here. So there were two sets of twins. Cain had a twin sister, and Abel had a twin sister. Now, if they were all in the womb together, Eve must have been pretty big. But that was not the case. All right? And they were born 2.5 years after Cain and his twin sister, Luluah. So, it wasn't a twin pregnancy. Cain and his twin sister came first through the seduction by the serpent, all right? And 2.5 years later, Abel was born, but he was born from an impure womb. And remember, the seed, the life is in the seed.